Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Um, this is a documentation process for this project, and it's very slow. So just enjoy the music. I won't be talking during my streams because it's just manual work. So enjoy the music and yeah.
Great. The new GoDaddy Arrow has AI marketing tools to help small businesses easily reach thousands of customers. It writes sweet social ads and email marketing. It even My furnace is making rumblings now.
We can send a tech in the
He's
morning.
one of the
Can I
few
get some details
characters
from
to
you?
appear in all 4 cycles of Irish mythology. But is Manannán mac Lir meaning son of the sea, the Irish god of the sea? Or was he a historical merchant, renowned for his navigatory prowess and namesake of the Isle of Man? Or is he a 3-legged giant who rolls like a wheel through the mist, thus giving the Isle of Man its most enduring national symbol? The answer? It really depends on which stories and texts you look at. In his most popular incarnation, Manannán is a member of Ireland's divine tribe, the Tuatha Dé Danann, and he's the possessor of many supernaturally imbued objects and animals, including a self-navigating boat called the Scuaba Tenya, Wave Sweeper, a sword, Fragarach, Answerer, that can cut through any armor, another sword, Dieltach, Retaliator, that can slay with every stroke, a horse, Ainver, aka Ainver of the Flowing Mane, that can gallop across the surface of the sea, a speckled cow he brought to Ireland from India that can provide a constant supply of milk, and 7 pigs or swine which, after being slaughtered and eaten, can be reconstituted so they can be slaughtered and eaten again, ad infinitum. I should also mention that after the Tuatha Dé Danann are defeated by the invading Milesians, who are the final race of beings to settle in Ireland according to the Laura Gawala Erin, or Book of the Taking of Ireland, commonly known as the Book of Invasions, it is Manannán who is tasked with assigning the Tuatha Dé Danann nobles the she or mounds they will henceforth inhabit. And to help them stay hidden from prying human eyes, Manannán provides his fellow gods with the Fiata, which is a magical mist of invisibility. This according to the tale Altrum Tiga Da Mater, or the nourishment of the houses of 2 milk vessels. Manannán mac Lir's penchant for weather manipulation is also seen in a chronologically earlier story, Ca Mai Chura, the Second Battle of Mai Chura, in which it is inferred that sea storms are caused by, quote, the horses of the son of Lir, end quote. Now, in addition to being the ruler of the sea and its storms and the divine house sorter of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Manannán is the ruler of the Celtic Otherworld, or one of the Celtic Otherworlds anyway. In the mythological cycle tale, The Coming of Lugh, Manannán's domain is referred to as Tír na nÓg, the land of youth. This is where Manannán trains his foster son, the god of many talents Lugh, and outfits him with all sorts of weapons and armor ahead of the aforementioned Second Battle of Mai Chura. In the Ulster cycle tale, The Sickbed of Cuchulainn, it's called Ma Mel, the Plain of Delights. Turns out it's not all that delightful, however, as Manannán's wife Fand needs to recruit the Ulster warrior Cuchulainn to come to Ma Mel to help her defeat her enemies in battle. Then there's the Fenian cycle tale, The Pursuit of the Giladacher and His Horse, in which the Irish hero Finn MacCool and his warrior band the Fianna pursue a disguised Manannán across the sea to his otherworldly fortress, here known as Tír Fóin, land under waves. Finally, in the King's cycle tale, Cormac's Adventure in the Land of Promise, the High King of Ireland, Cormac mac Art, pursues a disguised Manannán through the countryside and gets lost in a magical fog. When the fog dissipates, the king finds himself in Manannán's castle in the titular Land of Promise, Tír Tairngera. So there you have it, 4 stories from the 4 cycles of Irish mythology featuring 4 interpretations of Manannán ruling over 4 iterations of the Celtic Otherworld. But arguably the most famous Manannán mac Lir myth is one that doesn't fit comfortably into any of the 4 cycles.
massive key to understanding the Celtic solar mythology is understanding the myth of Math Fab Mathonwy, great uncle and forerunner of the lawful sovereign god, Lle. Upon analysis, it can be shown that the myth of Math is the myth of the sunrise, and the successors to whom he passes his powers are also solar gods, inheritors of the solar majesties. Math rises from the lap of his virgin attendant Gawain, as Savitar rises from the goddess Ratri, night, his household maiden. The rise of Math from Gawain is thus the rise of the god called in the Vedas the impeller of the sun, from the lap of night, where he rests between sunset and sunrise. It is said that Math can only rise when he is going to war. The war Math goes to is thus the sunrise. This metaphor of the sunrise as a war that the god of the rising sun dresses himself for is seen throughout the hymns to the sunrise god Savitar. Quote, "He putteth on his golden-colored mail," Rigveda 4.53, verse 2. After, quote, "Uprisen is Savitar, this god, to quicken," in Rigveda 2:38, verse 1, we read, "Savitar hath sped to meet his summons. He comes again, unfolded, fain for conquest," Rigveda 2:38, verse 5. He is called the warrior in Rigveda 6:71.1. Math hears and knows everything that reaches the wind. Savitar is all-knowing.
Myths are not stories that are untrue. Rather, they are tales that don't fit neatly into the historical record, which serve as a foundation to a culture. A great army marches across the land, led by a fearsome warrior queen. They approach a mighty river at the border and prepare to cross into enemy territory. But suddenly, out of the forest, a lone figure approaches and issues a challenge. No one may pass until they face him in single combat. And unbeknown to the host of warriors below, somewhere in the distance, a dark, beautiful being is watching, waiting, and pulling the strings of fate. Mysterious and seductive, the Morrigan commands fate, death, prosperity, and ruin. A mighty protectress, she looks after the land, nurtures its stock, guides its people, and oversees its military security. She is a wily shapeshifter, and when she is truly needed by her people, she takes on one of her many forms and intervenes in human affairs disguised. And that is exactly what the Morrigan did when she witnessed the hero Cuchulainn defend his home province of Ulster from the fearsome warrior Queen Maeve of Connacht. You see, Queen Maeve had a long-running competition with her husband to see which of them had the most wealth. And though they both possessed a variety of extravagant riches, her husband still owned one thing she did not, a prize bull. And though she searched her kingdom of Connacht high and low, she could not find a bull to rival his. However, there was one in the neighboring province of Ulster, so she went and found its owner and offered to buy it. He refused. She then offered him twice its value, but he refused again. And when she offered more money and even land, a third time he rejected her, for he simply had no interest in selling his most prized possession to a scary foreign ruler. Queen Maeve was furious. Storming home to Connacht, she then did what any sensible ruler would do in a situation like this: raise her armies and launch a full-on invasion of Ulster. Now normally, the Ulstermen would have no problem rising to the challenge and readying for war. However, the King of Ulster had recently disrespected the Morrigan, so she had cursed his army with a 9-day illness. And the only fighter who was unaffected from the curse was Cuchulainn, for he was the son of a god. Determined to stop the advancing armies, Cuchulainn, along with his longtime friend Leg, the greatest charioteer in the land, went to meet the advancing army. And when they arrived, Cuchulainn challenged the entire army of Queen Maeve to single combat in order to stall their advance, which also essentially sidelined his best bud. In response to this bold move, Queen Maeve offered the hand of her only daughter in marriage to any of her warriors who could defeat Cuchulainn in battle, as honor demanded that they accept his challenge before advancing on. The first warrior stepped forward, muscular and massive, but Cuchulainn beat them with ease. Then, a second warrior approached, fast and lithe like a serpent, but still, they were no match for the hero. Warrior after warrior of Queen Maeve's army fell to Cuchulainn. The man was unstoppable. He defeated every single challenger he faced, invoking the right of single combat again and again and again. For weeks, and eventually months, he burnt through Maeve's forces one by one, day after day, giving Ulster time to shore up its defenses and prepare for invasion. And all this patriotism and martial skill did not go unnoticed. Someone was watching. Nothing was so beautiful to the Morrigan as courage and skill in combat. And if that skill is used in defense of her own realm, simply irresistible. Infatuated by Cuchulainn and his deeds, the Morrigan fell deeply in love. So she took the form of a beautiful princess, went to the battlefield, and made her move. But despite her divine beauty, Cuchulainn rejected her, as he was focused on stopping the army and probably thought dating could wait. But you don't just swipe left on a beautiful, terrifying goddess of war and death. Oh, no you do not. It was now the Morrigan who was furious, and she would have her revenge. First, she transformed into an eel and tried to trip and drown him as he crossed a river. But Cuchulainn recovered and struck the eel, breaking its ribs. Next, she transformed herself into a wolf and drove a great stampede of cattle toward Cuchulainn in an attempt to trample him under their mighty hooves. But he stood his ground and loosed a stone from his sling and blinded the wolf in one eye. With her wolf form injured, she then transformed into a red-eared cow at the head of the stampede and charged straight for Cuchulainn. He not only evaded her charge, but he also broke her leg with a second shot from his sling. Forced again to retreat, the Morrigan reconsidered her tactics. This was no
That's
ordinary
crazy.
mortal she was dealing with after all. So she appeared in his dreams that night as a vision of an old woman washing his bloodied armor in a river.
A gruesome death will meet you this day.
She taunted. Cuchulainn awoke with a start. Oh, it was just a bad dream, right? Ugh, no matter. Better get back to single-handedly defeating an entire army. On the way to the battlefield, Cuchulainn came across 3 old women by the side of the road, and they offered him breakfast. Then, while he ate, one of the women rasped,
I have a prophecy for you. Today, the first 3 spears you cast will kill 3 kings.
Cuchulainn didn't know it, but these 3 women were also the Morrigan in disguise, and the meat that they fed him was cursed. And as he ate, his strength was ebbing away. However, his confidence was emboldened by this woman's prophecy, and Cuchulainn charged into the next round of fighting, with his trusty buddy Leg always watching nearby. Queen Maeve's warriors formed a circle around Cuchulainn, and the first opponent of the day made his way inside. Remembering the prophecy, Cuchulainn confidently threw his first spear, which did kill his enemy instantly. But as he basked in the glory of yet another victory, one of Maeve's soldiers picked up the spear and threw it back at him. Now the Morrigan watching all of this didn't think that Cuchulainn had suffered enough for rejecting her. So she redirected the spear over Cuchulainn's shoulders and right into Leg's heart. Thus, a king of charioteers died, and the first part of the prophecy was fulfilled. Enraged, Cuchulainn threw his second spear, which pierced through yet another of Maeve's oblivious champions. But yet again, a warrior grabbed it and threw it back. This time, with the Morrigan making sure, the spear felled Cuchulainn's horse. Seriously? The horse. What did the horse ever do? As he fell to his knees and wept, a king among horses died, fulfilling the second part of the prophecy. Now far too distraught to have learned a lesson, Cuchulainn threw his final spear, missing completely. And one last time, an enemy warrior threw his spear back, finally striking Cuchulainn himself. Thus would die a king among men, satisfying the Morrigan's rage and completing the prophecy. Now mortally wounded, Cuchulainn could not bear the thought of dying on the ground like an animal. So he tied himself upright to a rock. And as he breathed his last breath, the Morrigan took a form of a black crow and landed on his shoulder. When he saw her, he finally figured out that the princess, the creatures, and all of the old women had been the Morrigan all along. Realizing his folly, he died with a bitter laugh on his lips, as the Morrigan cawed in celebration of her victory over the mighty warrior, warning any others who might dare cross her. The Morrigan has inspired many stories over the ages, from the Arthurian legends to modern-day tales. So if you
Sure, why not?
Nuada is a divine hero of Irish Celtic mythology. He is the leader of the Tuatha De Danann, a group of gods and goddesses who ruled Ireland in the early days of that land. Nuada is known as a warrior god and portrayed as a brave and courageous fighter. In Irish mythology, Nuada was a born leader and skilled strategist. He was also known to be just, always fighting for truth and justice. One of the most famous stories about Nuada is his participation in leading the Tuatha De Danann during the Battle of Maitora against the Firbolgs. During this war, Nuada was severely wounded and lost his arm. Being crippled, he was forced to resign as leader and king of the Tuatha De Danann. With the help of the gods, Nuada received a beautiful silver arm to replace the lost limb. Thus, he could once again become leader of his people. Nuada was killed in a battle against Baelor, a tyrannical god known as the Terrible Eye. Baelor was one of the leaders of the Fomorians, a group of malevolent gods who invaded Ireland and fought against the Tuatha De Danann. Baelor killed Nuada with a powerful bolt of lightning, fired from his terrible eye, which was capable of destroying everything around him. Nuada was succeeded by Lu, the god of light, as leader of the Tuatha De Danann. He was responsible for exterminating Baelor and restoring peace to Ireland. The legendary King Nuada had his image forever associated with the struggle for freedom and independence. He became a symbol of pride and connection to Ireland's cultural roots.
Welcome back to my channel. Today it's time to look at another god of Irish mythology. Let's talk about Ogma, or Ogmius. The Irish god Ogma is a member of the Tuatha De Danann, but it's a little bit complicated to determine how he fits into the Tuatha De Danann, or in other words, who his family is. In the Leva Gabala Érenn, the book of the taking of Ireland, he is said to be the brother of the Dagda, and the son of Elaha or Etain, and Eliu or Aine. However, like always in Irish mythology, there are contradicting stories, sometimes describing him to be the son of Brigid, or even the son of Dagda and Danu. He is said to be the father of Delabe and Tiryn. It's not quite sure who the mothers are, but at least for Tiryn, it's assumed that it's maybe one of Ogma's own possible mothers, Aine. As you can see, the topic of his family is a little bit confusing, and so contradicted by various stories, that I think it's best not to further think about it. But from all the various legends of the Tuatha De Danann I heard so far, I would say it's safe to say that Ogma, Dagda and Lu are often said to be brothers, but in the bigger picture, maybe more in the sense of brothers in arms, or something like that, and not really brothers in the sense of having the same parents. However, he's also known as Griananach, sunny countenance, or Trina, strong man. He is said to have been the fairest of the so-called sons of Danu, and he was gifted with poetic prowess and the skill of writing. In fact, he was so gifted and creative that he is said to have invented the Ogham writing system, just by studying the flight of cranes. He's also said to have invented various languages, and to be a gifted poet. So gifted, in fact, that bards and poets prayed to get a glimpse of his awen, his poetic inspiration. Thanks to all those talents, he's the god of language, poetry, speech, writing, invention, inspiration, music, learning, and strength, and the patron of the bards and poets. But despite seeming to be a poet only gifted in the ways of the mind, he's also a very strong man and a great warrior. In fact, he was the chief warrior of the Tuatha De Danann, and it was him who tested Lu on his strength when he first came to Tara. In the mythological cycle, he threw a big boulder through a wall, a boulder so big even a team of oxes wouldn't have been able to move it. But Lu picked the boulder up and threw it back as if it was just a small pebble, and at the same time even fixed the wall. Later, Ogma fought in the Battle of Moytura, killed the Fomorian king Indek, but died there and then of the wounds inflicted by Indek. But the magical clap of the doctor was able to revive brave Ogma, and for his braveness he was awarded Orna, the magical sword of the former Fomorian king Terra, the sword that always sung of the glorious deeds of its bearer. Since he has a similar name and similar attributes, the Irish god Ogma is often equated to the Celtic god Ogmios. Ogmios is a god best known in Goel. He is the god of eloquence, and often depicted as a bald man wearing a lion skin and wielding a club and a bow. The ancient Romans thought him to be the Gaelic version of Hercules or Heracles, and sometimes of Hermes or Mercury. Sometimes Ogmios is depicted with a group of men who are bound to him through a chain leading from their ears to his tongue. Obviously, this is a reference to his eloquence, that people are tied to his lips. Just in this depiction, it's a little bit more literally. He is said to be a psychobomb, a god who leads the dead into the afterlife, and he is said to be a binding god, able to bind people to himself and to control their actions, depicted by the men chained to him, who seem to be smiling and following him willingly. So it's debate into him, and he is said to be a binding god, able to bind people to himself and to control their actions, depicted by the men chained to him, who seem to be smiling and following him willingly. So it's debatable if Ogmios and Ogma are two versions of the same god, but they both are skilled in words and language, and they both have supernatural strength. So, in all their differences, it's understandable to think of them as two versions of the same entity. The god of eloquence, language, and inspiration. And that's it
Ogmios.
about Ogma and Ogmios.
No, Ogma.
Thank you for listening. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to be notified when new videos come out. And if you want to know more about Celtic mythology, take a look at my other videos. And if you happen to be Irish and caught me mispronouncing something, please let me know in the comments how to pronounce it properly. Gormel Market. See you next time. Bye! The battle was over, but he knew he wouldn't leave this battlefield, for the wounds on his body were too severe. It becomes more and more difficult for him to breathe. His vision begins to blur, when he suddenly sees the crow flying towards him. An inner peace starts to spread in his soul, for he knows the Morrigan.
Sylvanas in D&D, the mighty Forest Father and one of the strongest gods. Sylvanas, also known as the Forest Father, is a prominent deity in Dungeons & Dragons multiverse. He holds sway over nature, wilderness, and the untamed aspect of the world. Sylvanas is revered by druids, rangers, and those who have a deep connection with the natural world. In the vast pantheon of Dungeons & Dragons, Sylvanas is often depicted as a wise figure reflecting the diverse and unpredictable nature of the wilderness he governs. Sylvanas is typically portrayed as a robust bearded man adorned with leaves and bearing the essence of primal force. Sylvanas' domain encompasses a wide array of natural elements. He holds domain over forest, plains, and wild places, as well as the creatures that inhabit them. His influence extends to the cycle of life, including birth, growth, and decay, making him a deity of renewal and regeneration. Sylvanas is also revered as a protector of nature against those who seek to exploit or harm it for personal gain. Sylvanas is chiefly revered by druids, rangers, and those who revere the untamed beauty of the natural world. Druids in particular hold a special affinity for Sylvanas, viewing him as a guiding force in the pursuit of balance and harmony with nature. They often form orders or circles dedicated to the Forest Father's teaching, emphasizing the importance of preserving the wilderness. Why is Sylvanas one of the strongest gods? Sylvanas earns his place among the strong gods of the Dungeons & Dragons pantheon due to several key factors. 1. Influence over a fundamental aspect of the world. Nature, in all of its forms, is an integral part of the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Sylvanas' control over this domain grants him considerable power and influence. Number 2. Devoted followers. Widespread reverence for Sylvanas among druids and rangers ensures a dedicated and loyal following. This collective belief bolsters his divine presence. Number 3. Balancing force. Sylvanas embodies the delicate equilibrium between the chaotic and ordered aspects of nature. This dual role as both a creator and a destroyer contributes to his significance. Number 4. Alignment with other strong gods. Sylvanas often aligns his interests with other powerful deities like Shanti, goddess of agriculture, and Maliki, goddess of the forest and hunting, further cementing his status among the strong gods. His influence over nature and the creatures that inhabit it, coupled with a devout following, solidifies his position as one of the strongest gods. Sylvanas serves as a beacon of wisdom and protection for those who cherish the wild beauty of the natural world in the realm of Dungeons & Dragons. Sylvanas is not just a deity in Dungeons & Dragons, but he's actually part of mythology. If you'd like to see a video on him, let us know in the comments below. For more on Dungeons & Dragons, make sure you like and follow. Also subscribe to our newsletter at ghostchickenranch.com.
The Underdark is a living labyrinth, endless, unknowable, and alive with things that were never meant to see the light. It's not simply a place beneath.
Hello everybody! In this video, I will try and explore the mythology, family, creations, and significance of Ra, taking you on a journey from the dawn of creation to his lasting legacy. Ra, the sun god, holds a paramount position in Egypt. Hello everybody! In this video, I will try and explore the mythology, family, creations, and significance of Ra, taking you on a journey from the dawn of creation to his lasting legacy. Ra, the sun god, holds a paramount position in Egyptian mythology. He was considered the king of all gods and the creator of the world. Ra was worshipped as the god of the sun, creation, life, and resurrection, and his influence permeated every aspect of ancient Egyptian religion and culture. Ra, also known as Re, was one of the earliest gods in the Egyptian pantheon, and his worship dates back to the 2nd dynasty. His name means sun in ancient Egyptian, and he was often depicted as a falcon-headed man, crowned with a solar disc, symbolizing his dominion over the sun. Ra's family connections are both intricate and extensive. In the Heliopolitan creation myth, Ra is often associated with Atum, another creator god. According to this myth, Atum Ra emerged from the primordial waters of Nun, a chaotic, formless abyss that existed before creation. Atum Ra then created Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture, through an act of divine masturbation or spitting, depending on the version of the myth. Shu and Tefnut produced Geb, the earth god, and Nut, the sun goddess, who in turn bore Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nethys. These deities formed the Ennead of Heliopolis, a group of 9 gods and goddesses, with Ra at its head. This divine lineage underscored Ra's role as the progenitor of gods and the universe itself. Ra's role as the creator god is central to his mythology. According to ancient Egyptian beliefs, Ra created the world and everything within it through the power of his spoken word. This act of creation is vividly described in various texts, such as the pyramid texts and the coffin texts, where Ra declares his intention to bring forth life. One of the most significant myths involving Ra is his daily journey across the sky. Each morning, Ra was reborn and sailed across the sky in his solar bark, bringing light and life to the world. As the sun set, Ra descended into the underworld, Duat, where he faced various challenges, including battles with the serpent Apophis, who sought to plunge the world into darkness. Ra's journey through the underworld symbolised the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. His triumph over Apophis ensured that the sun would rise again, reaffirming the continuity of life and the triumph of order over chaos. Ra was often depicted with the body of a man and the head of a falcon or a ram, crowned with a solar disc encircled by a serpent. The solar disc represented the sun, while the serpent symbolised protection and the eternal cycle of time. Sometimes Ra was shown as a scarab beetle, known as Khepri, representing the rising sun and the concept of rebirth. Another important symbol associated with Ra is the Ankh, a hieroglyphic representation of life. Often depicted being held by Ra or other gods, the Ankh signifies their power to bestow life and immortality. By the way, you can find a comprehensive video I made last year about the Ankh in the description of this video. Ra's worship was widespread throughout ancient Egypt, and numerous temples were dedicated to him. The most significant centre of his worship was Heliopolis, known as Yunu in ancient Egyptian, meaning city of the sun. Heliopolis was the primary cult centre for Ra, and its priests played a crucial role in maintaining his worship and rituals. The obelisks.
The gods of death have a major public image problem. It seems like every time we talk about a death deity, a chthonic character, an under Ragnarok, Hades plotting against Olympus in every movie he's ever been in, and then there's Anubis. His associations with death combined with his animalistic appearance has led to films like The Mummy Returns and The Pyramid portraying him as a violent, power-hungry villain, when in reality, he is the god of minding his own business. It is true that according to Egyptian mythology, Anubis is one of the first figures we meet after we die, but that doesn't make him evil by default. If anything, we should really appreciate Anubis because he looked out for us. If it weren't for him, we'd have to find our own way to the underworld, our graves would be left unprotected against scavengers, thieves, and the elements, and we'd have to weigh our own hearts against the feather of truth, which is just gross. The ancient Egyptians considered Anubis an S-tier deity. He was as important as it gets, because everyone knew they'd be standing face to face with him eventually. That's why today we're diving deep into Anubis' mythology, the unique way he was worshipped, his specific responsibilities as a psychopomp, and how his role evolved through the dynasties. Make sure you sacrifice those like and subscribe buttons so the gods bless you with more mythology and folklore content every weekday. And now, you've got to stop interrupting me, man. So we've already established that Anubis is the jackal-headed god of funerary rites, the protector of graves, and the guide to the underworld. But in order to fully grasp why he's one of the most respected deities in the ancient Egyptian pantheon, one has to understand that society's views about death and the afterlife. Because according to ancient Egyptian belief, death was not the end of your journey. Your soul and consciousness could continue on their merry way. The catch, though, was that in order to actually enjoy the continuation, there were a number of rituals that had to be conducted in the land of the living and tests you had to pass in the underworld. It was Anubis who presided over these various rituals and processes, starting with the preservation of the body. The Egyptians believed that your body went with you to the duat, what they called the underworld. This is why funeral rituals were so important. Having your body preserved through mummification meant that you wouldn't be doomed to shamble around the blissful fields of reeds as a decaying corpse. The story behind Anubis, or Anpu as the Egyptians called him, being viewed as the almighty embalmer, comes from the Osiris resurrection myth. For those who need a refresher, Osiris was the original god-king of Egypt who was betrayed and murdered by his brother Set, the god of chaos and destruction. Set chopped Osiris's body into little pieces that his wife Isis had to search for all across Egypt. And even with the help of all the king's horses and all the king's men, she couldn't put his body together again. That's where Anubis comes in. When Ra, the supreme sky god, heard Isis's cries of pain and sorrow, he created Anubis and sent him down from the heavens for the sole purpose of preserving Osiris's body. So the young god aided Isis in sewing the dead king back together and dressing him in the first ever mummification bandages. Now, full disclosure, there is another version of the story where Anubis is not the spawn of Ra, but actually the bastard son of Osiris and the goddess Nephthys. In that version, Nephthys feared that her tyrannical husband Set would discover her infidelity, so she abandoned Anubis in a bush only for him to be found and adopted by her sister Isis. So in that account, Anubis wasn't created solely for this purpose, but it still went on to become his purpose. I'm assuming because reassembling your father's corpse and preparing it for burial creates quite the core memory. To put it another way, once that first mummy was made, it was a wrap. Anubis's domain and the standard for funerary practices had been established. But remember, there was more to it than just properly burying bodies. A myth found in the Jumalak Papyrus, apologies for the mispronunciation, explains why Anubis was the protector of graves and why the priests who attended the dead wore Anubis masks and leopard skins. It turns out that after Osiris's body had been stitched together, Set was still determined to destroy it, so he took the form of a leopard and tried ripping it to shreds. But Anubis stood his ground against the god of chaos. He picked up a scorching hot iron rod and he beat Set into submission. Then he flayed off his leopard skin, which was now covered in black spots thanks to the iron rod burning his fur, and fashioned it into a garment he would wear as a warning against evildoers who would dare desecrate the tombs of the deceased. There is something kind of ironic about Anubis protecting the graves though, and it's not something I've heard talked about very much. Your boy has the head of a jackal, right? And jackals are scavengers. Wicked Witch of the East, bro. Your boy has the head of a jackal, right? And jackals are scavengers, meaning they survive by eating corpses. Basically the opposite of protecting them. Surely the Egyptians were aware of this, especially when you consider the burial process prior to the first Egyptian kingdom was far more simple, with bodies being buried in shallow graves that gave the jackals easy access. So why was this animal chosen as the sacred grave guardian? Unfortunately, we can only speculate, but Egyptologist Toby Wilkinson suggests it was a fight fire with fire situation. A common theme in Egyptian magic and theology was fighting like with like. And so an animal that embodied a particular undesirable characteristic or whose behavior adversely affected humans was chosen as the image of the deity to guard against such eventualities. When you think about it, it's not that different than Taweret, the goddess and guardian of families, children, and childbirth, embodying a hippo. In reality, hippos were major threats to humans, and a mama hippo would happily gobble up a mother and her child if it meant protecting her own calf. But this quality was flipped on its head so that humans became the beneficiaries instead of victims. I'll admit it's not a perfect comparison because I doubt the jackals are known for fiercely defending their own dead like mama hippos are with their calves, but maybe I'm taking this all too literally, and the answer actually lies in Anubis's role as the master of the scales. about to get metaphorical up in here, my friends, but first I want to thank our sponsor Squarespace for supporting the show. When deceased souls entered the underworld, they used the Book of the Dead to survive the many perils they encountered on their journey. And when entrepreneurs, creatives, or hobbyists want to enter the world of digital marketing, we use Squarespace. From their massive library of award-winning design templates to their intuitive interface that lets you drag and drop boxes as needed, if you're looking to advertise and grow your business or just share your passion with the world, Squarespace has all the answers. Want to start a gallery of your artwork, sell your own merchandise, or start a newsletter to keep your community informed? You can do all of that and more. And because Squarespace knows how important a website is for the success of any business, they give their users access to marketing tools and analytics so we can make sure our website is running efficiently. And they offer personalized customer support 24/7 on the rare occasions it's not. So whether you want to give your business a fresh new online identity or get professional with your passion, unbalanced life, one that was more bad than good, more selfish than selfless, your heart would weigh more than the feather of truth, and Anubis would hand it over to Amit, the lion-maned crocopotamus who devours the souls of the unworthy and obliterates their consciousness from existence. However, if you had lived a good, honest life, and to be clear, you didn't have to be perfect, you just had to honestly try your best to be a decent person, then your soul would weigh lighter than a feather. Anubis would lead you to Osiris, the Lord of the Underworld, and His Highness would guide you to the eternally blissful Field of Reeds. And I should give credit where it's due, American Gods, the show based off the Neil Gaiman IP, did a great portrayal of Anubis in Season 1. In the 3rd episode, there's a scene where he kindly and gently informs a woman that she's died, and he's there to take her to the next realm. Then we see a stripped-down version of the judgment process, where he takes her to the duat, weighs her heart, which turns out to be perfectly balanced, and then sends her on her merry way. That is the happy ending that all Egyptians were hoping for in those days, and they did everything possible to put the odds in their favor. Things like burying people with a copy of the Book of the Dead, which was essentially a strategy guide on how to get through the duat safely, carving magic incantations onto coffins to protect the bodies inside, and of course the mummification process to preserve the body for as long as possible. But that brings us back to the earlier question, if preserving the body was the highest priority, why would the Guardian of Graves be a scavenger that is known for snacking on and mutilating bodies? Well, think about it this way. Chances are a selfish person who couldn't be trusted and never did a nice thing for anyone in his life wouldn't have anyone to make sure that his body was cared for after he died. His bod would be dumped in a shallow grave that scavengers could easily dig into, meaning he'd be left to the jackals. If they decided to eat him, they would. If not, he'd be completely rotten away before long. In other words, the jackals determine the fate of your physical body, while the jackal god determined the fate of your soul, which was also more likely to be devoured if you were a selfish person. I do think it's kind of ironic that Anubis feeds the heart to Amit instead of eating it himself, but maybe he used to and just doesn't have the taste for it anymore. It's just a theory of mine, but Anubis has been around since the first dynasty of ancient Egypt. In fact, he was considered the Lord of the Underworld before the cult of Osiris came along about 1,000 years later in the New Kingdom era and demoted him in favor of Osiris. With that in mind, Amit the Devourer wasn't introduced until around that same time. So how did Anubis discard the unworthy souls before that? My guess is he ate them. Full disclosure, I'd have to do more research before betting any schmeckles on that theory, but I think it's a fun idea. And if you have any thoughts to add, either for or against it, comment them below.
In every good mythological story, there is always a villain, an entity that threatens chaos and destruction, the inevitable end of everything we know. When we take a look at Egyptian mythology, that evil takes the form of Apophis, or Apep, the god of chaos, darkness and destruction. He was known by several names, including Apep, Apepai, and the Greek translation of Apophis. In some of the earlier stories, Apophis was once the god of the sun. He was later pushed aside by Ra, the god that we've all come to associate with the sun today. Having been somewhat dethroned by Ra, Apophis harbored a great deal of resentment towards the god, and he vowed to make it as difficult as possible for Ra to succeed in his task of bringing the dawn every day. In some depictions, Apophis was born from darkness and chaos, making him the mortal enemy of light and fueling his desire to overthrow the balance of all things. Apophis takes the form of an enormous serpent over 50 feet long, which is why he earned the nicknames Evil Lizard and Serpent from the Nile. The word Apep is derived from the Egyptian word meaning slither and could also be used as a term for being spat out, which would refer to the way Apophis was shunned and removed from his position as god of the sun. There are even some depictions of Apophis being described as a crocodile that swims in the dark waters of the underworld. In later Greek and Roman stories, he was described as an enormous golden snake, several miles long, with a head of stone. Apophis was just one of the many gods to have been born from the goddess Neith, making him brother to many of the predominant gods in Egypt, including Ra, Serket, and Sobek. Every day when Ra would travel across the sky in his solar barge, bringing the dawn, Apophis would await to attack the sun god in an attempt to plunge the world into darkness. As a result, Ra enlisted the help of numerous defenders that would make the journey with him. When Apophis would show up to block the way, they would slit the belly of the serpent open, allowing Ra to pass. There is a story regarding the two, where one morning Ra was performing his duties. When Apophis swallowed the barge, Ra would travel across the sky in his solar barge, bringing the dawn. Apophis would await to attack the sun god, with the help of numerous defenders that would make the journey with him the way. There is a story regarding the two, where one morning Ra was performing his duties. When Apophis swallowed the barge whole, Ra transformed himself into a cat, and with the help of Set, they were able to cut themselves free from inside Apophis and continue their journey. With cats and snakes being seen as natural enemies, the story of Ra transforming into a cat to defeat his nemesis does make sense from a symbolic standpoint. In other stories, Apophis would hypnotize Ra and all of his followers. Only the god Set would be able to resist the serpent, and he would repel him with his great spear. Despite being defeated every day, Apophis continued to swallow the sun god and his followers, knowing that if they were unable to escape just once, he would succeed and plunge the world into darkness. Despite being considered a god, Apophis was rarely worshipped by anyone. There was even a book solely dedicated to stopping the serpent god, which included a collection of rituals meant to keep him at bay. The people of Egypt believed that Apophis would lead an army of demons that would prey upon the living and the dead each year. In order to stop this, the priests of Ra's temple would conduct an annual ritual known as the banishing of Apep. An effigy of the serpent god was taken into the temple and imbued with all the evil of the land. The effigy was then beaten, cursed and burnt to keep Apophis away and help the gods ensure that the sun would rise again the next day. The book containing these rituals and magic spells devoted to stopping him was known as the Book of Apophis. I hope you guys enjoyed taking another look at some Egyptian mythology. If you did, let me know in the comments below what you thought. But as always, I've been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained.
One ancient god has become one of the biggest puzzles in European religion. Pictures of him turn up across Europe, and he's seen pictured standing with a few of the most famous gods in Rome. But we still don't know who he is. We have his name, or at least we think we do, but we have no surviving myths or written accounts describing what he did or how he was worshipped. You're about to explore one of European mythology's biggest mysteries. Welcome to the mysteries of mythology. Cernunnos. In 1710, construction work was taking place deep beneath Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. During this work, labourers uncovered a stone pillar that would become one of the most important pieces of evidence for an otherwise mysterious god. The pillar had been reused inside of a wall. It wasn't medieval as one might expect in that location. It was much, much older. The pillar likely dates to the early 1st century, during the period of Roman rule in Gaul. Gaul was the name the Romans gave to the
They told you Bastet was the cat goddess, a cute, harmless deity for people who like cats. They put her statue in museum gift shops, a quaint relic from a forgotten time, a symbol of domesticity, perfume, and pleasure. But that is a lie. A deliberate and profound deception designed to make you overlook one of the most powerful, complex, and dangerous feminine archetypes in spiritual history. Bastet was never just a house cat. She was the guardian at the gate, the all-seeing eye that pierces the darkness, the purring goddess of sacred sensuality and the roaring lioness of divine wrath, all in one. They domesticated her image, declawed her, and turned her into a gentle pet because they did not want you to remember her true nature. Because a woman or a man who embodies the full spectrum of Bastet is utterly ungovernable. They separated her from her shadow, her warrior self, the lioness Sekhmet, because they needed you to believe that you had to choose, to be either soft or strong, either loving or fierce, either a kitten or a killer. But the truth is, you are both. And your power lies not in choosing one, but in integrating the two. The true Bastet is the guardian of your sacred inner space, the keeper of your joy, and the fierce protector of your boundaries. And in a world that constantly seeks to invade, diminish, and distract you, her energy is not a myth you study. It is a power you must awaken within yourself, right now, if you wish to not only survive, but thrive. To truly understand Bastet, you must first understand the lie of her separation. In the earliest days, the goddess of the wild feminine was a singular, terrifying, and beautiful force. Sekhmet, the lioness-headed goddess, the powerful one. She was the Eye of Ra, the embodiment of the sun's fiery, destructive, and purifying rage. She was the warrior who defended the divine order, Ma'at, and annihilated all who threatened it. She was divine wrath incarnate. But as civilization grew, as cities were built, and society became more ordered, this raw, untamed power became too much for the patriarchal systems to handle. They needed a more civilized version of the feminine. And so, a miraculous transformation occurred in the mythology. The fierce Sekhmet was pacified, her rage soothed, and she was transformed into her gentler aspect. Bastet, the cat. This was not just a story changing over time. This was a spiritual and political act of suppression.
Ten most powerful gods in Egyptian mythology. Ten most powerful gods.
His goofy look? It was on purpose to scare away anything that...
More likely, he was always seen as a dwarf with the strength and power of a cat. He is represented as a dwarf with large head, goggle eyes, protruding tongue, bold legs, bushy tail, and usually a crown of feathers. The god's figure was that of a grotesque mountebank who was intended to inspire joy or drive away pain and sorrow. His unruly beard, lion's mask, loud instruments, and wild dancing were all thought to drive away any evil spirits that attempted to infiltrate the house. As such, Bes was thought to be the protector of children and pregnant women. Ancient Egyptians, especially mothers, believed that if a baby laughed for no apparent reason, it was likely that Bes was in the room. Consequently, depictions of him were frequently seen in the bedrooms of ancient Egyptian houses. In the Ptolemaic period of Egyptian history, temple construction included chambers with painted images of Bes and his wife Beset. Egyptologists say that these chambers were built for the purpose of curing fertility problems or general healing rituals. Having no temple of his own, worship of Bes happened at household shrines. Images of the deity, quite different from those of the other gods, were kept in homes. His image adorns many household objects to invoke his protection. Bes was often carved onto furniture, especially beds, to protect people, especially children, from evil spirits or ghosts which might come in the night. Additionally, many ancient Egyptian cups or vessels were fashioned in the form of Bes's head. It was believed that the liquid contained within these cups would acquire the healing properties of Bes, and as such, were often used for medicinal practices. Bes also came to symbolize the good things in life: music, dance, and sexual pleasure.
They told you Hathor was the goddess of love and beauty, a gentle cow-headed deity of parties, music, and pleasure. They made her sound frivolous, a decorative figure in a dusty pantheon, the patroness of life's pleasant but ultimately shallow distractions. But that is a lie. A carefully constructed lie designed to conceal one of the most powerful, primal, and essential forces in all of creation. Hathor is not the goddess of superficial pleasure. She is the living embodiment of divine joy, the cosmic matrix through which all life is born, the fierce eye of the sun, and the loving womb that nurtures the awakened soul. They reduced her to a party girl because they did not want you to discover the truth, that your joy is not a distraction from your spiritual path. It is the path. That pleasure is not a sin. It is a form of prayer. And that a human being who is fully embodied, sensually alive, and unapologetically joyful is a direct threat to any system built on fear, scarcity, and control. You have felt her call your entire life, in the music that makes your spirit soar, in the beauty that brings tears to your eyes, in the deep, resonant peace that follows a moment of true, uninhibited laughter. That is not just emotion, that is her. the Golden One, the Lady of the Stars, the Mistress of Life, and she is rising again, not in the temples of Egypt, but in the heart of humanity, inviting you to remember a truth they tried to bury. The truth that the universe was born from ecstasy, and that your birthright is to return to it. To unlock the mystery of Hathor, you must first understand her sacred name. It translates to the House of Horus, or the Mansion of Horus. This is not a poetic title, it is a precise cosmological statement. She is not a person, she is a place, a divine vessel, a sacred architecture. Horus represents the awakened, unified, divine consciousness, the fully realized soul. Hathor is the cosmic house, the nurturing temple, the energetic and loving matrix in which that divine consciousness can be conceived, protected, and born. She is the very fabric of reality that makes enlightenment possible. Without the loving, joyful, life-affirming field that is Hathor, there can be no Horus. There can be no awakening. There can be no ascension. This is a truth that shatters the foundation of patriarchal spirituality, which has always placed the goal of enlightenment out there, a distant masculine peak to be conquered through struggle and asceticism. Hathor declares that the goal is not out there. It is born within the sacred, loving, joyful vessel of embodied reality itself. She is the proof that you don't escape the world.
Imhotep was a remarkable ancient Egyptian personality who excelled as a visionary architect, renowned physician, and wise royal advisor. Born in Ankto near Memphis, Imhotep exhibited a razor-sharp mind and an unquenchable curiosity as early as his youth. Conifer, Imhotep's father, was a highly respected architect, and he spotted his son's extraordinary talent early on and introduced him to the building trade. Imhotep's genius quickly attracted Pharaoh Dozier's attention, who recruited him to serve as his royal advisor. Imhotep humbly accepted and soon distinguished himself not only as an architect, but also as a doctor and priest. His legacy started to take shape in the limestones of the Saqqara necropolis, where he challenged traditions by designing the Pyramid of Dozier with steps and galleries, a majestic structure that stood out against the horizon. Imhotep was also renowned for his medical skills, and temple corridors echoed with tales of his miraculous cures. His bond with the healing deity Sekhmet lent a divine aura to his procedures. People started to revere him not just as a brilliant architect, but as a being gifted with celestial wisdom. Imhotep's life was laced with mysteries and superstitions. It was said that he had the gift of interpreting dreams, a skill that the pharaoh deeply prized. His medical and architectural writings were regarded as sacred texts, and his teachings were employed in many areas for the benefit of the Egyptian people. As time went by, Imhotep grew into a venerable character, and his deification was bound to happen. Following Imhotep's death, the Egyptian authorities raised him to the rank of a deity, serving as the god of wisdom and medicine. Temples were built in his honor, and future generations turned to him as an icon and a source of inspiration. Imhotep's name reverberates through the centuries as a byword for intelligence, creativity, and spirituality. His quest, filled with challenges, successes, and mysteries, still inspires those who look for the truth in studying and learning from the past. Egyptian mythology is shaped by several peculiar deities, one of which is the god Bene-Gesserit. In Egyptian art, this god is typically depicted as a winged creature with several ram heads, or as a typical Egyptian deity with a human body and ram heads. The ram image was profoundly tied to vitality and creative power, attributes that Bnebdjeet embodied. As a symbol of fertility, the animal was particularly important for an agrarian society like that of Egypt, where reproduction and the prosperity of crops were essential for survival. The ram's head also implied regal power, connecting Bnebdjeet to the concept of divine authority that sustained the pharaoh. The name Bnebdjeet may be translated as Lord of the Djed, a cross-reference to the Djed pillar, which stands for stability and strength. This name echoes his role as a deity who upheld order and power in Lower Egypt. Since his origins in Mendesh, Bnebdjeet was venerated as a guardianship deity, whose influence extended deep into local religiosity, evolving to become a symbol of power and authority not only in the Delta, but throughout Egypt. This relationship between Bnebdjeet and other deities is crucial to understanding his position in the Egyptian pantheon. He is often partnered with his consort Hatmehit, who was worshipped as a water
her what she could, a simple meal and a bed of straw. Her guest was no ordinary beggar. She was Isis, the most powerful goddess in Egypt. Isis was in hiding from her brother Set, who murdered her husband and wanted to murder her infant son, Horus. Set was also a powerful god, and he was looking for them. So to keep her cover, Isis had to be very discreet. She couldn't risk using her powers, but she was not without aid. Serkit, goddess of venomous creatures, had sent 7 of her fiercest servants to guard Isis and her son. As Isis and Horus settled into their humble accommodation, the scorpions fumed at how the wealthy woman had offended their divine mistress. They all combined their venom and gave it to one of the 7, Tefen. In the dead of the night, Tefen crept over to the mansion. As he crawled under the door, he saw the owner's young son sleeping peacefully and gave him a mighty sting. Isis and her hostess were soon awakened by loud wailing. As they peered out of the doorway of the cottage, they saw a mother running through the street, weeping as she cradled her son. When Isis recognized the woman who had turned her away, she understood what her scorpions had done. Isis took the boy in her arms and began to recite a powerful spell. O poison of Tefen, come out of him and fall upon the ground. Poison of Befen, advance not, penetrate no farther, come out of him and fall upon the ground. For I am Isis, the great enchantress, the speaker of spells. Fall down, O poison of Mestet. Hasten not, poison of Mestetet. Rise not, poison of Petet and Tetet. Approach not, poison of Martet. With each name she invoked, that scorpion's poison was neutralized. The child stirred, and his mother wept with gratitude and lamented her earlier callousness, offering all her wealth to Isis in repentance. The woman who had taken Isis in watched in awe. She had had no idea who she'd brought under her roof. And from that day on, the people learned to make a poultice to treat scorpion bites, speaking magical incantations just as the goddess had. Disguise plays a significant role in many ancient myths. Why is everyone being so sneaky? Here are 2 more hand-wringing classics from Chinese and Greek mythology.
It was a feast like Egypt had never seen before. The warrior god Set and his wife, the goddess Nephthys, decorated an extravagant hall for the occasion, with a beautiful wooden chest as the centerpiece. They invited all the most important gods, dozens of lesser deities, and foreign monarchs. But no one caused as big a stir as Set and Nephthys' older brother Osiris, the god who ruled all of Egypt and had brought prosperity to everyone. Set announced a game. Whoever could fit perfectly in the chest could have it as a gift. One by one, the guests clambered in, but no one fit. Finally, it was Osiris's turn. As he lay down, everyone could see it was a perfect fit. Another win for the god who could do no wrong. Then, Set slammed the lid down with Osiris still inside, sealed it shut, and tossed it into the Nile. The chest was a coffin. Set had constructed it specifically to trap his brother and planned the party to lure him into it. Set had long been jealous of his brother's successful reign and hoped to replace him as the ruler of all Egypt. The Nile bore the coffin out to sea, and it drifted for many days before washing ashore near Byblos, where a great cedar grew around it. The essence of the god within gave the tree a divine aura, and when the king of Byblos noticed it, he ordered the tree cut down and brought to his palace. Unbeknownst to him, the coffin containing Egypt's most powerful god was still inside. Set's victory seemed complete, but he hadn't counted on his sisters. Set's wife Nephthys was also his sister, while their other sister, the goddess Isis, was married to their brother Osiris. Isis was determined to find Osiris and enlisted Nephthys' help behind Set's back. The two sisters took the shape of falcons and traveled far and wide. Some children who had seen the coffin float by pointed them to the palace of Byblos. Isis adopted a new disguise and approached the palace. The queen was so charmed by the disguised goddess that she entrusted her with nursing the baby prince. Isis decided to make the child immortal by bathing him in flame. When the horrified queen came upon this scene, Isis revealed herself and demanded the tree. When she cut the coffin from the trunk and opened it, Osiris was dead inside. Weeping, she carried his body back to Egypt and hid it in a swamp, while she set off in search of a means of resurrecting him. But while she was gone, Set found the body and cut it into many pieces, scattering them throughout Egypt. Isis had lost Osiris for the second time, but she did not give up. She searched all over the land, traveling in a boat of papyrus. One by one, she tracked down the parts of her husband's dismembered body in every province of Egypt, holding a funeral for each piece. At long last, she had recovered every piece but one, his penis, which a fish in the Nile had eaten. Working with what she had, Isis reconstructed and revived her husband, but without his penis, Osiris was incomplete. He could not remain among the living, could not return to his old position.
Known as the goddess of home and service in Egyptian mythology, Nephthys is a mysterious figure. She was the wife of Set, the god of chaos and barren lands. Despite being husband and wife, he was rather indifferent to Nephthys. Not only did he neglect his divine wife, but he was also drawn to her sister, the goddess Isis. This dynamic resulted in tension and betrayal. Nephthys bore a son called Anubis. To conceive this child, however, Nephthys got involved with Osiris. This event was pivotal in the development of Egyptian myths. Set knew that Anubis was not his legitimate son, as he was an infertile god. Set, already jealous of his brother Osiris, could not forgive him for his betrayal, so he killed him and threw him into the river Nile. Nephthys found herself in a conundrum. She would have to choose between helping her sister Isis seek justice for Osiris or standing by her husband Set. She chose to help her sister mourn and search for the fragments of Osiris's body. Her commitment was crucial to bringing Osiris back to life and the rise of Horus, leading to her husband's downfall. The goddess came to be regarded as a protector of the dead, helping them on their journey to the afterlife. This connection with death is not seen in a negative light, but as part of the cycle of death and rebirth. Nephthys is regarded as one of the guardian goddesses of the canopic jars, where Egyptians kept the organs of the mummified deceased, with her image often engraved on the corners of sarcophagi as a protective symbol. Nephthys was a deity with exceptional abilities, particularly suited to ancient Egypt's challenging conditions. She had an amazing ability to adjust to the extreme conditions of the desert. The goddess could see at night,
clambered finally, it was Osiris's turn. As he lay down, so charmed by the disguised goddess, she searched all over. He went, though. He and Isis conceived a son. Complete. He could not remain among the living, could not return to his old position as ruler of Egypt. Instead, he would have to rule over Duat, the realm of the dead. Before he went, though, he and Isis conceived a son to bear Osiris's legacy and one day avenge him. Keep exploring ancient Egypt with our guide to the Egyptian underworld, or follow along with Pesachet as she checks in on her patients during daily rounds. Ani stands before a large gold.
In the complex religion of ancient Egypt, Ptah was considered one of the mightiest deities of the Egyptian pantheon. Known as the creator god who brought all things into being, Ptah was held in special regard by the people of Egypt, and was also known as the patron god of craftsmen and architects. Ptah was originally worshipped as the local deity of Memphis, but as the city of Memphis rose in power and became the capital of Egypt during the First Dynasty, the worship of Ptah surged to prominence, and Ptah came to be celebrated throughout all of Egypt. As Memphis's role expanded throughout Egypt, so did reverence for Ptah's power. Ptah's companion was the warrior goddess Sekhmet. Ptah and Sekhmet together created a son, Nefertum, god of youth and the lotus blossom. Together the three deities were called the Memphite Triad, and their cult was one of the largest of the Egyptian dynastic history. Egyptians who were part of the Memphite Triad cult believed that Ptah was the most important of all of Egypt's gods. Ptah was revered by his followers as the most ancient god, and therefore the creator of all things, including other deities, the sun, the earth, and was responsible for new growth and vegetation. Various creation stories of Egyptian mythology state that Ptah made the other deities of the pantheon by imagining them in his heart and speaking them into life with his tongue. After speaking the gods into being, he then began to breathe on wood, metal, and stone to make the other creatures of the cosmos. Whenever a new town, city, village, temple, or shrine was built, it was said that Ptah must have spoken them into being first, and it was Ptah's ceremonies that were often first celebrated after breaking ground. Throughout the centuries, the god Ptah took on many different forms. As Ptah was originally a small territorial god of the city of Memphis, as Memphis's influence grew throughout the Egyptian empire, so did the power and representation of Ptah. Originally, it is believed that Ptah was represented as a naked and grotesque dwarf, one of the dwarven deities of the pre-dynastic kingdoms. Egyptologists often associate early worship of Ptah with another dwarf god named Bes, the god of childbirth. However, as reverence for Ptah grew, soon Ptah began to take on a statelier form. By the time of the formation of the Old Kingdom and the city of Memphis becoming the capital, Ptah had taken on the characteristics of a number of other gods, namely the falcon-headed Seeker and the creator god Tatanen. In Ptah taking on the characteristics of the god Seeker, Ptah took on Seeker's white shroud and crown, the Ater, which was also linked to Osiris. In doing so, Ptah additionally became known as the patron of Saqqara and the sites of the royal pyramids. Over the centuries, Ptah and Osiris were syncretically combined into a deity named Ptah Seeker Osiris. The statue of Ptah Seeker Osiris began to appear as a half-falcon, half-human, or sometimes as a single falcon form, and began to be placed in tombs as a protection for the dead in the afterlife. Ptah was sometimes equated to the Hermopolitan chaos pair Nun and Naunet. Besides being a creator god, Ptah is a chthonic god of the dead, who seems to be of worship since the early dynastic period. Ptah is often depicted with a straight beard, like earthly kings, shrouded like a mummy, holding a special scepter and wearing a skull cap. Ptah was the chief god of the ancient city of Memphis. He was unique amongst Egyptian creation gods in that his methods were intellectual rather than physical. According to the priests of Memphis, everything is the work of Ptah's heart and tongue. Gods are born, towns are founded, and order is maintained. Ptah was also the patron god of skilled craftsmen and architects. This may be due to the excellent sources of limestone near his temple in Memphis. As a craftsman, Ptah was said to have carved the divine bodies of the royalty. In Dynasty 19, he was shown fashioning the body of Ramesses II out of electrum, a material made from solid gold. In the artisans' community of Deir el Medina, near western Thebes, Ptah was especially venerated. He was believed to determine the individual destiny of the artists there. Craftsmen carved statues dedicated to their god. Ears were often...
When we talk about gods that have a villainous reputation, like Hades or Hell, we often learn they weren't nearly as evil in the actual mythology as pop culture has made them out to be. The real Hades may as well have been the god of minding his own business, and Odin confined Hel to the realm of the dead before she even had a chance to explain why half her body resembled a spooky, rotting corpse. But some gods are just as evil as their modern-day portrayals, and today's subject is one of them. Set, the Egyptian god of chaos, hasn't made a ton of appearances in pop culture, but every time he shows up on screen, he's portrayed as the most devious bastard in all of Egypt. A tricksy, malevolent being hell-bent on plunging the world into chaos. You can think of Set as the mythological equivalent of Scar from The Lion King. He coveted the throne of his brother Osiris, along with the nigh infinite power that came with it, and he willingly spilt the blood of his own kin to get it, along with a few other bodily fluids. You're in for some very messed up and messy mythology today, and you don't want to miss any of these disturbing details, so make sure you stay until the very end. Also, if you haven't yet, remember to sacrifice those like and subscribe buttons to the algorithm gods, because that not only supports the channel, but ensures you get more content like this in your sub box and recommended feed every Thursday. And you know what else supports the channel? Today's sponsor, Aura. As much as we might wish that we could all live in peace, the god of chaos loves to rear his head and disrupt our lives. Ancient Egyptians viewed foreigners as a potential source of chaos by introducing new beliefs and customs into their society. Set is the son of Geb and Nut, the primordial gods of the earth and sky, and he has 4 siblings, 2 brothers named Osiris and Horus the Elder, and 2 sisters named Isis and Nephthys. But Set's birth was the most violent. Instead of waiting for his mother to push him out naturally like she did his siblings, he clawed his way out of her, putting his strength and ambition on display for all at the cost of causing her indescribable pain. Set would go on to marry his sister Nephthys, and in some myths, their union would produce Anubis and Wepwawet, the dog-headed deities who guided dead souls to and through the underworld. In other myths, Set was incapable of having children, his infertility stemming from his lordship over the desert, which provided the opposite conditions necessary for life. In other words, because Set's domain was dry as a bone, Set's bones stayed dry.
Move this man!
Set also has a few other wives, but we'll talk about them later because their marriages don't happen until the end of his major myths and are a byproduct of the shenanigans he pulls, which I don't want to spoil just yet. Instead, I want to answer the burning question that has no doubt been on a number of your minds since you saw Set for the first time. What the hell kind of animal is he supposed to be? Unfortunately, I can't answer that question, because no one can. At least not beyond a shadow of a doubt. To this day, Egyptologists refer to whatever animal Set's supposed to be simply as the Set animal, because they just
crocodile god of the river Nile, in man with the head of a crocodile. It was Sobek's appearance that made him so terrifying. Crocodiles were just one of the many species of animals found in the river Nile that were capable of devouring a man. Over the years, there have been numerous tales attempting to explain to us how exactly the river Nile was formed. In some of these stories, the river was created from the sweat that poured from Sobek's body. Being able to rule over the river Nile, when considering the amount of dangerous and aggressive creatures that called the river home, was no easy task, but because Sobek was able to do this, he was seen as even more dangerous than the creatures themselves. The river Nile did also bring with it many positive aspects. It provided fertile soil and means to grow vegetation, essentially giving birth to new life. As Sobek was considered to control these waters, he was seen as the fearless protector of the Nile, which often led him to also being associated with fertility, as well as crocodiles in the river Nile itself. The god was worshipped by the ancient Egyptian people because of the gifts he brought them, the gifts of vegetation and fertility that came with the river Nile, but despite this, he was still extremely feared by the people. His reptilian appearance and the rule of an environment as harsh as the Nile meant that Sobek was quite often seen as aggressive and unpredictable. His behavior was often attributed to animal instinct, and along with this instinct and his association with fertility, he was regarded as overtly sexual, very similar to an animal that is unable to control its urges. Throughout the years, Sobek has been referred to by many names, including Sebek, Soket.
In the heart of ancient Egypt, a land where myths and reality intertwined, Thoth emerged as a god of unparalleled wisdom. His story is a mesmerizing journey through the annals of Egyptian mythology, a tale of intellect, insight, and enduring influence. Thoth, with his distinctive ibis head, was an enigmatic figure revered for his wisdom and his profound impact on the culture of ancient Egypt. In a civilization filled with deities, Thoth stood out as a symbol of knowledge and enlightenment. His story transcends time and beckons us to explore the realm of ancient Egypt, where a god like no other reigned supreme. To understand Thoth's story, we must delve into the origins of the gods themselves. Thoth was a member of the small Ennead, a group of deities who held dominion over the Egyptian cosmos. These divine beings played pivotal roles in shaping the world, and Thoth was among the most extraordinary. Thoth's name, Jehuti, bore the essence of his character. It meant he who is like the ibis, a tribute to the sacred bird that became his emblem. The ibis, with its elegant beak and poised stature, embodied the qualities that set Thoth apart. The ancient Egyptians believed that Thoth's wisdom mirrored the precision and grace of the ibis, and so he was forever linked to this revered creature. Ra, the sun god, symbolized life and vitality, and Thoth was said to be born from Ra without a mother. He was destined to become the god of intellect, wisdom, and insight, guiding both mortals and the divine in their pursuit of knowledge and truth. Thoth's image was one of captivating symbolism. He was often depicted with the head of an ibis, a bird renowned for its long beak and graceful bearing. In other representations, he took the form of a baboon. These transformations reflected his profound association with wisdom and the moon, two elements that set him apart in the Egyptian pantheon. The ibis symbolized the ability to probe deeply into the mysteries of the universe, to reach beyond the boundaries of ordinary knowledge. Thoth, like the ibis, possessed the gift of seeing the concealed truths that lay beneath the surface of existence. The moon, with its ever-changing phases and hidden face, embodied the mysteries of time and the cycles of life, a realm that Thoth ruled with sagacity. Thoth's wisdom was not confined to the celestial. It extended into his family life. His wife was Mahat, the goddess of truth, balance, and order. This divine union represented the harmonious relationship between wisdom and truth, a reminder that knowledge without truth was incomplete. From their union came their daughter, Seshat, who took on the role of the goddess of writing and measurement. She recorded the essential aspects of existence, preserving knowledge for future generations. Through his family, Thoth's wisdom radiated, leaving an indelible mark on the cosmos. Thoth's renown was far-reaching, and he bore numerous titles that reflected his exceptional abilities. He was hailed as the scribe of the gods, entrusted with the monumental task of recording the deeds of the divine beings. As the Lord of Books, he safeguarded the eternal wisdom contained within ancient tomes. His significance stretched beyond the realm of writing. Thoth was the god of science, delving into the mysteries of the natural world. His expertise extended to medicine, as he offered guidance in the healing arts. His exceptional judgment and discernment marked him as the deity of judgment, ensuring that justice and fairness prevailed. Thoth embodied the embodiment of intellect and erudition, leaving a legacy of enlightenment that resonated through the ages, inviting mortals and the divine to partake in the pursuit of knowledge and truth. Thoth's divine duties were as vast as the cosmos itself. He was the celestial architect of harmony and equilibrium, ensuring that the gods work together to maintain balance within the universe. His wisdom extended into the human realm, where he guided and enlightened the pharaohs, the earthly rulers, with his sagacious counsel. Thoth acted as the link between the earthly and divine realms, bridging the gap between humanity and the gods, serving as a guide for those seeking wisdom and understanding in the cosmos. Pharaohs and rulers of Egypt were drawn to Thoth's divine intellect and wisdom, seeking his counsel in times of decision and governance. His ability to make impartial and just judgments made him a cherished advisor in the courts of the land. As the Lord of Divine Words, his advice was highly sought after, ensuring that the earthly realm was in harmony with the divine will. Thoth's presence in the courts of Egypt reassured the leaders that their decisions were guided by wisdom and fairness, serving to unite the two realms under the watchful eye of this divine sage. Thoth's wisdom encompassed not only the realm of thought, but also the world of the written word. He was not just the god of wisdom. He was the god of writing, language, and knowledge. It was believed that Thoth had gifted humanity with the art of writing, bestowing upon them the means to record their thoughts and experiences for future generations. Scribes and scholars found in Thoth a divine patron. He protected them in their noble pursuits of knowledge and literature, offering inspiration and guidance. The intricate hieroglyphs, Egypt's distinctive and intricate writing system, were attributed to the divine hand of Thoth, who created them for the benefit of humankind. With Thoth as their patron, the Egyptian people learned the art of preserving their culture, history, and wisdom through the written word, ensuring that their legacy would transcend the boundaries of time and space. Thoth, the god of wisdom and intellect, was not only the keeper of knowledge, but also the prolific author of numerous sacred texts and books that encompassed the vast spectrum of wisdom. These texts, known collectively as the Books of Thoth, were revered as invaluable sources of insight, guidance, and spiritual enlightenment. At the heart of his literary legacy is the Book of Thoth, believed to contain the essence of his divine wisdom. This sacred tome is said to hold the
Thanks for watching. See you guys when I'm doing a Greek